think next time I should have music, background music while we're getting settled in. But I think we'll give it 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. I think we can go ahead and get started. But hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming to our event. And I just wanted to give kind of a layout of how this information session is going to go. So we'll start this session with our speaker, Professor Martha Minow, who will share some advice about academic legal writing. And then the 2 executive managing editors, or EMEs, for student writing for CRCL, Josh and Denise, and I will provide an overview of the submissions and review process for CRCL. And then lastly, we'll do a Q&A. So please send your questions in the chat or the Q&A for us to answer at the end. And please bear with us, and we're trying out this new sort of Zoom webinar function. And so may have some technical difficulties along the way, but hopefully with the Q&A and everything, it will flow smoothly. But just to introduce myself, I'm Sierra. I'm the editor-in-chief of student writing for CRCL. And also in terms of technical things, if you cannot hear or see anything at any point, just please send a question in the Q&A function. We'll try to fix that as soon as possible. But to jump in, now I'm honored to introduce Professor Martha Minow. Professor Minow holds the 300th anniversary university professorship at Harvard University. She's taught at Harvard Law School since 1981 and served as dean for 8 years. Professor Minow is an expert in constitutional law and human rights, and her work, including both scholarly articles and books, has focused on issues confronting historically marginalized individuals and groups, legal responses to social, political, and religious conflict, and legal treatments of digital communications and technologies. So thank you, Professor Minow, for being with us tonight.
It's my pleasure. I am a huge fan of CRCL, and I guess I'm even a faculty advisor. So it's a real delight to be here. I'm also particularly excited to imagine the writings that those who are here are going to do, and I hope soon. So I'll just say a couple of things about academic legal writing. There are many different kinds of articles and essays that go under this heading, and CRCL has published quite a wide range. And I'll describe certain types. I once thought that it was so confusing how many different types there are that I actually wrote something that I think of as a field guide, kind of like looking at birds or something in the wild. And I'll put in the chat a link in case it's of help. Recently published a 2nd edition of this with Susanna Barton-Tobin, who probably many of you know. So the one kind of legal scholarship is doctrinal. And its basic approach is to summarize doctrine, organize it, make it clear, critique it, but it focuses on what especially courts do, but maybe what agencies do, typically not what legislatures do, although that's, of course, important. And this is not typically what is most cherished right now in legal scholarship, and it's not typically what the CRCL publishes, but at least think about it, because restating what the doctrine is may be a part of what you do. A second, and I think really interesting kind of project, I call a recasting project. It's to come up with a new framework for something that's maybe been around for a long time, or looking at exceptions and grouping them together and finding a new rule, or just gathering developments, not just in courts, but in patterns of legal regulation, and describe it, give it a name, characterize it. So examples of this range from early piece by Louis Brandeis and Samuel Warren, articulating the right to privacy by gathering up exceptions to a lot of common law cases. And another kind of example is Melissa Murray's recent article, Marriage as Punishment, where she goes through a variety of ways in which the legal status of marriage carries negative consequences. A third kind, and familiar, and this often appears in the pages of CRCL, is policy analysis. So identify a problem, define criteria for solving the problem, and propose some solutions. And this can usually include some kind of motivating reason why the reader ought to care about this problem, and also some acknowledgement of the distance between goals and implementation. I think it's also really good to explore not just one proposal, but a range of alternatives, or even a range of alternative criteria. A fourth kind of scholarship that is very much, I think, cherished in legal journals is to test a proposition about society or the economy or technology or human beings that's assumed by law, that's used by lawyers, that's assumed in legal sources, that's a premise of legal doctrine. Take a widely assumed or commonly known proposition and test it empirically. And the empirical method might be quantitative, or it might be focus groups. And then summarize the findings for lawyers, legal audiences, and maybe expose really a faulty premise of a lot of areas of law. A fifth kind of turns the camera the other way. It's to study and assess legal institutions that could be courts, agencies, prosecutors, institutional actors, and actually evaluate them. What are they doing well? What are they doing terribly? Abe Shays wrote a classic article, The Role of the Judge in Public Law Litigation. There are articles in this category that are quantitative. There's some that are qualitative, but they are turning a critical eye and an empirical eye of some sort onto legal practices and legal institutions. A lot of work of this nature in the abolition area, looking at the role of prosecutors, the role of sentencing, and so forth. Wonderful piece by Lauren Sudil and Ruth Richardson, for example, called Unfamiliar Justice, Indigent Criminal Defendants' Experiences with Civil Legal Needs. Simply evaluates how many civil legal needs often are neglected or even exacerbated as low-income individuals deal with the criminal system. A sixth kind of project, I just call critical projects. Although there could be critique in each of the other ones in one form or another, I mean here critique of a deeper form, looking at underlying tensions in the law, maybe unresolvable tensions, exposing patterns or results of internally inconsistent structures or views inside of a body of law or legal practices or institutions, and highlighting the tensions, the contradictions, or the paradoxes. And many of these take the page from critical legal studies or critical race theory, queer critical legal studies, but not always. There could be critical work that, for example, is written across the mainstream of federal courts, but exposes underlying tensions in the doctrine that are simply not capable of being resolved. A seventh kind of legal research is comparative or historical. And I'm fond of saying, because I really believe it, that one of the major goals of writing academic legal scholarship is to show that things could be different and they have been different, to really feed legal imagination. And there are few ways better than by looking at where has it been different in the past, and how is it different in other countries, other jurisdictions? And lots of great examples of that. My colleague Nico Bowie has a wonderful piece called Why the Constitution Was Written Down, which is a historical piece that does just this, offering a rich description of a contrasting legal regime or an earlier era. One of the benefits and challenges of this kind of scholarship is it's treading on the disciplines that are outside of law, anthropology, history, and becoming familiar with sources and explaining methodology can be an important part of this work. An eighth kind of scholarship is some form of philosophy or normative scholarship. And the goal here is to develop a theory that tries to explain law or how parts of it hang together, or to critique it with an alternative, with a positive vision, demonstrating how the theory helps to illuminate a better way to go, or to explain a conceptual puzzle, or to advance a conception of justice, or what kinds of norms law and power ought to be deployed for. And then, of course, there are combinations. Many people put together one piece or another of this kind of scholarship, and why not? How do you get started on a project? I think the most important thing is you have to be excited about the project, because you're going to be working on it for a long time. For me, I often start with something I'm angry about. What makes you mad? What needs to change? You own your own mind. You have the chance to shine a light on something that you think deserves attention. I also think it's very valuable to imagine your audience. I personally think it's critical to write in a way that an intelligent person who's not a lawyer can understand what you're talking about. And, try it. Try it with friends. What's your elevator pitch? What's a two-sentence statement? What's the question that you're asking? And talk to professors, talk to colleagues as you develop the idea. Read, but don't read endlessly. You could spend your life reading, but read enough to have a sense of, are you engaging with what others have said? Do you have something critical to say about what others have written? There are different kinds of projects in terms of size and scope and how much they're about present day issues. Blog posts are increasingly a place where scholars are writing, but the chance to write something that is actually published in a journal is a chance to do something that's longer and more sustained. And I'm just about done. I suppose in closing, I would just say that there are lots of resources to help you as you think about writing. More and more people are writing explicitly about the process of writing legal scholarship, and we cite some of those resources in this article. But the point is to be in dialogue, to imagine that you're hitting the ball and someone will hit it back, or you're joining a movement, or you're propelling a movement, and you're not alone. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Professor Minow. I think kind of going through the types of legal scholarship and how to get started and is a great place for many students to start thinking about submitting their writing and submitting it to CRCL. So thank you so much. And so now we're going to kind of transition into a brief overview of the student writing process. And so as I mentioned, let me switch slides. But as I mentioned, I'm Sierra Tizilvikos. I'm the editor-in-chief of Student Writing, and there are two executive managing editors for Student Writing, which are Josh and Denise, who you'll hear from shortly. We have a team of 12 student writing editors who work with us to review all of your submissions. And then once the submissions are selected, they help to edit the pieces that will be published. So I will now turn it over to Josh to talk about why you all should submit to CRCL, what you can write about, and what to submit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As Sierra mentioned, my name is Josh. I use he, him pronouns, and I am one of the executive managing editors of the student writing silo here at CRCL. So why should I submit? There's a million different reasons. I like the best one at the bottom, why not? But truly, if you have been sitting on an idea for a while, something that, as Professor Minow said, has gotten you angry about the world or excited about the prospect of a new field in progressive scholarship, this is an opportunity to share your idea with the world, to expand on ideas that you've had in class. If you've had a particularly good paper that you were excited to work on, that you've had kind of dialogue with the professor about and think shows some promise, this could be a great opportunity to deepen that, expand that, and get it out there in the world. Again, to build relationships with professors. I think the kind of critical process of feedback from learning from your professors, of taking advantage of their knowledge of the field, and really pushing the boundaries of progressive scholarship is a really big thing that we take pride in lifting up at CRCL. And so we really encourage that dialogue with your professors. It's a great opportunity to just practice writing, improving your writing a very long piece of scholarship that you can take pride in and then, again, send out in the world. We're all students. I think this venue for students is incredibly powerful. And it's also a great way to get a writing sample because as students, we're all looking towards that next step, towards applications, and there's always that dreaded box of what are we submitting as a writing sample. So this is a really great opportunity to develop, to really put the time and effort into developing a piece that you're proud of, that shows your skills as a writer, that shows your passion for a particular kind of substantive field of law, that I think could really go a long way in propelling your career forward. And kind of along similar lines, building your resume. You get to put it on there and say that you have done this very cool thing. And again, why not? So what should you write about? Again, we are a progressive law review, and so we publish anything within the realm of civil rights and civil liberties. Obviously, that can be a kind of fuzzy topic, gray topic, but if it is not obviously outside of the scope of progressive scholarship, we do welcome that you submit it, and then we'll be able to review it and hopefully work with you to ensure that it aligns with kind of the vision of our journal, and that we could publish something along those lines. Some examples of things that would fall outside of the scope, we do focus on domestic issues, so anything international law related is probably better suited for another journal. Also pieces that don't make a connection to progressive scholarship specifically, so we really care about having a very strong thesis that aims at advancing civil rights and civil liberties, stuff that we've seen in the past that has kind of been in the gray area that maybe we would that needs to kind of have a strong thesis to tie it in. There's some kind of economic pieces that we've seen where you can kind of spin it to working towards civil liberties, but again, we want to make sure that this journal is promoting progressive scholarship that focuses on our core. But truly, everything else is fair game. If you're kind of iffy about it, feel free to shoot us an email. Feel free to submit, and we will review it and get back to you eventually on whether or not we can move forward with your piece. And you're welcome to, you can check out our website and see what sort of stuff we've published in the past. And that's, of course, a great starting spot to see kind of what sort of scholarship we aim to promote. So what form should your submission take? What are you actually submitting to us? Your paper is a great starting point. There is actually a unique thing about CRCL in that we do accept incomplete drafts of articles. There's the caveat that this obviously can't just be like a bare bones outline or just kind of a half-hashed idea that um, you know, cooked up and really have not put a ton of thought into. We want to make sure that there's going to be a final product at the end, that this is something that you've devoted a significant amount of time to and have made progress in developing. But it does not need to be a complete finalized finished product for you to submit it for our initial review process. We ask that those thoughts, again, be in a form that looks like it could be a complete article at some point in the near future. You should be keeping in mind the first week of April. I think it's April 6th is kind of when we'll have notified you if we're moving forward with your article, and we'll be beginning the editing process with our team of editors, and so we'll really want something finalized by that time. And of course, every single article undergoes an intense revision process in a collaborative process with our editors. And so I think that kind of complements the idea that nothing needs to be a perfect product. There are no perfect products. Even after our team of editors attacks it, it's not going to be a perfect product. So we really want this to be a collaborative effort where we make this the best paper possible and to, again, align our vision for what we're promoting. The second unique thing is that we do anonymize our review process. So we take fairness in our review process very seriously, and we anonymize all submissions that we receive. When you submit, we ask that you include a cover letter, and on that cover letter, we ask that you include a brief description of the piece that you're submitting, the names of faculty members who assisted with your piece, and any relevant feedback those professors may have had. We also ask that you just include a bibliography, a list of the main sources for your piece. And lastly, we ask that you do a preemption check. And all this information can be found on the submission page of our website. Next up, we'll just kind of look through some examples of what this looks like. And again, we'll make sure that either you get this example or something similar like to that is on our website so you can see exactly what we're looking for. But again, cover letter, just basic description of the piece, kind of think abstract type deal, how you came up with this piece, what is it that we're reading, how it connects to progressive scholarship, and any sort of faculty members that have been part of that process. Again, we strongly encourage, we definitely don't discourage any sort of editing process or collaborative effort with professors. It does have to be your work, it needs to be your product, but we strongly encourage, getting feedback in the development process from professors and welcome that. A sample bibliography next, just again, basic list of articles that you cite and a case citation list as well. And then finally, the preemption check. This is an important part just because it really helps us understand how this fits into, again, the broader frontier of progressive scholarship. So really, what are you adding to the field of progressive scholarship? It's a good faith effort. We're not trying to sniff out fake papers or anything like that. But we really just want to get excited about a unique contribution of your research, whether you're building off of another idea or other research project, or you're just providing just so that you can provide an idea to us of where your piece falls within the literature. Westlaw and Lexis have guides on preemption checking, which are very useful, so we recommend using those. Another tip for preemption check is just to search your topic in Google Scholar and see what comes up, see if maybe your idea is sadly not so original. Sometimes lightning strikes twice and people have brilliant ideas at the same time. Does not mean your idea is not brilliant, but sadly we do not want to publish something that has already been published out there. All of this would be what you would want to discuss in your preemption check in your cover letter. I will now hand it off to Panise to talk about a few other details regarding submission.
Hello, folks, and thank you for that lovely handoff, Josh. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Panise. I'm also very grateful to be giving you guys more information tonight. And I'd love to start off by telling you a little bit about the length of student submissions. And so in terms of length of student submissions, it depends. We've published articles all the way from those in the 10,000 word range to those that are in the 36,000 word range. We're much less concerned, in fact, with length than we are with content. The content is what really matters. And anyway, oftentimes the length changes substantially as a piece goes through the editing process. So what a lot could happen during the editing process that could involve things like fleshing out an entirely new section as we read on and we discover that your piece might really benefit from discussing something more in depth. Or it could mean that maybe one of the sections are a little more on the esoteric side, and so could benefit from a little trimming. Pieces get longer and pieces get shorter, long story short, and so we're really not that concerned. But of course, that being said, if your piece is looking like a 2,000 word piece or it's a 100,000 word piece, then we might not be in the sort of law review style that we're looking to be able to publish for our readership. But all that said, please send us what you've got, and we are so happy to provide feedback. We take a lot of pride in our ability to be able to provide feedback to folks whose articles were not selected, because we want you to be able to go on and someday publish your work. And so some of you here might have even submitted to us beforehand and might have even received feedback from us. And of course, it's never too late to get some more feedback. So then we come to the question of how articles are chosen. The submission process is a relatively straightforward one, fortunately. We do not use Scholastica. We use a pretty plain and simple Google form. We just ask that before you submit your paper, please do like a Control F or a Command F, whatever version of a computer you have, for your own name. And this is really important. This includes the cover letter, and you need to make sure that your name is not on there anywhere. Make sure that there aren't any comments left in the document that could have your name as the author of that comment, because Sierra is the only person who knows who submitted what, and she can't pass on anything to the rest of the student writing team if it has your name on it. So please make sure to check, double check, triple check for that. And once you've submitted, as mentioned, we review anonymously. The student writing team, which is the 12 editors we mentioned earlier, they get together and they discuss all of the articles. We choose somewhere between 5 and 8, sometimes up to 10 pieces that will go before the whole editorial board, which is roughly 100 or so people. At that big meeting, we have some of the student writing editors present the pieces that we're proposing to the board. The board gets to ask questions and engage in discussions about the article. And then everybody on the board votes, which determines which pieces will be published. There's more information to our review process on our website, because we know that's a bit confusing and convoluted and has a million steps to it. But we try to bring some quality work, and so we do try to be as transparent and provide updates as the process moves along. We promise we won't string you along if your article doesn't make it to the next round of review. You'll know right away, and so we won't let you waste your time. And similarly, if your article does make it to the next round, we will also let you know that. So no news means nothing. Don't worry. You will hear from us either way. And to re-emphasize this point, if your article is not selected, we will still offer the chance to review and give you some feedback from our editors. So please feel free to take us up on that. We love being as helpful as possible in getting to make sure that your ideas get to move forward in this world. Now we get to when to submit. And I see that there was a question as well about our timeline. Here's a little bit of information on that. We ask that you submit by March 14th at 11:59 p.m. If you're submitting an incomplete draft, just make sure that you've got a complete, as complete draft as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, but basically not an outline by April 6th. That's really important so that we know what we're working with and so that we can move forward on the writing, on the reviewing and checking process. And then if you're selected, what happens then? Well, the EMAs, Josh and I, each shepherd an article through the article editing process. Like moving sheep along. I'm just messing around. Taking these beautiful articles, you'll basically be paired with one of us and we'll be your point of contact throughout the process and then lead your article through 2 rounds of review. That first round is going to consist of broad stroke suggestions from our team about sections you may want to remove or add, or broad changes that you're looking for throughout the piece. Maybe some structural questions, some thematic considerations to really make your piece shine. And then the second round will be much more involved. The first round will get you your edits by late April, and then we ask that you have them back by late May. And then in the second round, we'll get your edits by mid-July, and we'll ask that you have them back to us by early September, sort of around the time that fall semester starts. After that, our whole team will work on subciting. So if you can, and I know this is annoying, please try to blue book, but don't worry about your blue booking being perfect. I make my fair share of mistakes when I'm just writing, and so we're here to help in any way possible. We have an entire team of people, as a matter of fact, who are volunteering to help you with it. Now we get to some FAQs, and so we'll mention some of these, and then we'll kick off the Q&A. But to start off, people often ask whether they can submit to us and then another journal, because there's often other journals that accept student notes, and that is perfectly fine. You can actually find this information on our website. And next question we have here is about submitting multiple papers. Typically when people submit multiple papers, they're submitting all that they have, but we just ask that you make sure that any and all submissions fall within our scope of progressive leadership. That theme is really important to us because that's the whole point of the journal to begin with. We're trying to advance the notion of progressive scholarship and really break new boundaries, but in this area. It's also fine to submit a paper that you started working on as an undergraduate, as long as you're currently a law student now, with the caveat that the work needs to be generally in a law review style. So if you wrote a paper in undergrad, for instance, that's more in an undergrad thesis style and less of a law review style, that's probably not within the scope of what our readership is. I would suggest maybe working on that and editing it to a certain extent to bring it within the law review style. And one great source for that is looking at what we've published before on our website to get a sense of the types of things that are usually hyper successful in our process. These are the FAQs, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us.
Hi, yes. Thank you, Josh and Penise, for walking us through that process. I know that Professor Minow has also been answering a lot of the questions in the Q&A, so thank you, Professor Minow. A great source of information to have. If people want to send more questions in the Q&A, we'll be happy to answer those. And one thing also to touch on, because I saw the question about if English is not your first language, we also on our Google form have a place where you can add like something else that we'd like to consider. We do consider demographics when we're reviewing articles and things like that. So that's something that you could note on your form, just indicating that as well so that we're aware of it and can consider it when we review your articles. So more information that we know about you and kind of what went into your article as well. Yes, Professor.
There's a question in the Q&A which you're in a better position to answer, which is if somebody is a 3L who will graduate before publication, is it okay to submit?
Yes, that is okay. You just have to be a current law student when you submit. Just be mindful of kind of the timelines and things of that nature, because I know that could overlap with some things in your life. But we do allow students, you have to be a current law student when you submit the article. So yes. All right, well, we will stick around for more Q&As until like probably around 8:30 for those to roll in. But thank you all for coming. And please feel free to submit questions in the chat. We'll stick around for that. Or you can always email the CRCL submissions email as well. And we will get back to you on those. And we really look forward to reading your work and for you to submit to CRCL, if not now, but in the future, for those of you who will still be law students and eligible to submit. So thank you so much. So yes, the recording of this, just to answer the one question, the recording and the copy of the slides will be put onto our website as soon as possible. So you should be able to access those through our webpage. It'll be kind of linked from the events page into the submissions page. So yes, those will be on there. I guess in terms of topics we're looking for, so I think as mentioned before, the main things within topic is just the scope of the journal, what we're looking for. So thinking about progressive scholarship and what you contribute to that kind of overarching umbrella, as well as obviously the theme of the journal being civil rights and civil liberties, which can also be quite broad. So just under those two umbrellas would be like it can be very, very broad. Kind of like the slides have indicated, we've published on a variety of things in the past, and that might be a great place to start, is just seeing like what articles, like Denise said, have been successful getting through our process. So to answer the question about length, so like Denise mentioned, like we've published a wide range of articles in length in like terms of submission, like, or rather not published, but rather they've been submitted in a wide range of length. And so like 7,500 words, like that kind of fits within that really broad range. I think a thing to keep in mind, like as was mentioned, is like in the law review style and kind of thinking about scope and things like that. But you don't need to add to it to reach a particular length, because we don't have like a length we're looking for, because it can change in a variety of ways throughout the editing process. I think that's a wrap. Thank everyone for coming. See you later. Bye.